The Nigerian Union of Journalists has been a powerful voice for journalists, protecting their rights, negotiating better working conditions, and promoting ethical standards within the Nigerian media. Today we will be discussing the critical role of journalists in Nigeria and the challenges they face in carrying out their duties, from issues of press freedom and safety to the impact of social media on traditional journalism. We will delve into the complexities of the Nigerian media landscape. Join me as we engage in a thought-provoking conversation with my guest in exploring ways in which journalists can continue to play a vital role in promoting democracy, accountability, and good governance in Nigeria. In Nigeria, here, Chapter 2, Section 22 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, defines the role and obligation of the mass media. And this is a quote: "The press, radio, television, and other agencies of mass media shall at all times be free to uphold the fundamental objectives contained in this chapter and uphold the responsibility and accountability." And so on and on the Constitution goes. Thomas Jefferson, one of America's founding fathers, who served as the third president of the United States from 1801 to 1809, once said in a famous quote that, "Were it left for him to decide whether they should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, he said he would not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter." That is, he would not prefer to have a government, to have newspapers without government. So that goes to tell you how Thomas Jefferson viewed the importance of the media. Well, on this side today, my guest is the very man who should know when we are talking about Nigerian journalists. He is the president of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Alhassan Yahaya. Welcome to Insight, my president.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, Yahaya was elected at the Triennial National Delegates Conference held in Owerri, November the 27th, 2024. He has walked up his way up the ranks, showcasing leadership abilities at every step of the way. From leading his chapel at the Gombe Media Corporation to serving as the state chairman of the union and later the zonal vice president, Alhassan has proven time and time again that he is not only capable but also passionate about advancing the interests of journalists across the country. So it's no news and no surprise that he is the current president of the Nigerian Union of Journalists. Once again, Alhassan, welcome to Insight.
Thank you for having me.
All right, straight on to the issue. I know that it's been 3 months or thereabout in the saddle, but then congratulations will still be in order.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. I know that when people aspire to office, there are a lot of things they plan, a lot of things, the ideas they have. Most times, when they get to office and they are faced with the reality on ground, a lot of which they did not know when they were campaigning, sometimes they get overwhelmed. We've seen presidents say this, we've seen governors say this. But in your own case, how was the before and after shock, after the briefing, after the election, and you moved into the office? How was that?
Well, thank you so much. My name is Alhassan Yahaya. Currently, I'm the president of Nigeria Union of Journalists. But before then, like you said, I was a secretary in my council, chapel chairman in my council, chairman of NUJ in my council, Gombe State Council, and I happen to be the first person to serve the union twice in the history of Gombe State. I was also zonal vice president of in charge of Northeast. I was a national ex officio. I was also a deputy president, now president of the union. So far, I'm the oldest serving NEC member in Nigeria. This is my 21 year as a NEC member. So I think I have worked with 4 presidents. I work under former President Smart Adeyemi, who is a former senator. I work under former President Mohammed Garba, who is a former Commissioner of Information in Kano State. I work under former President Wahid Odushule, who is a former Commissioner in Ogun State. I also work with my former boss, the immediate past President of NUG, and now as a President of NUG. Of course, when we are campaigning to be leaders of the union, we promise journalists that we want to see how we'll touch life of journalists, improve the issues around remuneration, issues around insurance for journalists, issues around weighing allowance, issues around media enhancement bill, among others. And at the same time, we have a blueprint. We develop a blueprint, and we also promise journalists that we are going to develop for the first time what we call a development plan for the union. And that development plan is going to be like a reference point. Even when we leave office, others will come and also add something on it and continue to work towards that. And I want to assure you, so far so good, and it is expected as a leader to also look ways of at least engaging people that are going to work with, so that they will give you advice, meaningful advice towards achieving your objectives.
All right, that's very comprehensive. Recently, you held a press conference to tell Nigerians about what you plan to do sometime later in the year in terms of an award. Could you just bring us up to speed what that was about?
Yeah, a press conference is about improving to see how we'll touch life of our colleagues, especially journalists, practicing journalists. It is an innovation of our past leaders since 2018, and it is expected that every year we must appreciate perseverance, we must appreciate hard work, we must also appreciate dedication to service, and that is why this year we want to see how we'll also be able to actualize that dream by making sure that we identify journalists that were able to touch life of Nigerians, journalists that were able to come up with a new ways of investigative journalism. Like you said earlier on, it is only one profession, journalism profession, that is mentioned in the Constitution, whereby if you go to section 2, subsection 22, it is clearly stated that we should hold government accountable. So this year, we want to see how we'll work closely with colleagues to see that we come up with new strategies of making sure that members were identified, members were also recognized. And we also know that a free and independent press play a critical role in promoting transparency and accountability anywhere globally. And I want to assure you this time around, we want to see how we'll work with our colleagues. And we have series of awards. The first award we are going to be giving is a Press Freedom Award, which is going to be journalist that is going to be identified based on his role by investigative journalism, and it is also going to be a journalist who played a critical role in making sure that they have done their job without fear or favor. I keep using a word, like I said always, journalism is not a crime, and we want to use this opportunity to tell our colleagues, especially the security agencies as well as members of the general public, let's work together towards touching the life of Nigerians, towards changing the narratives. Our job is only to entertain, sensitize, as well as to inform citizens on the situation at stake.
All right, I'm happy that you brought in that one, the later part of it, concerning what journalists go through in terms of trying to get their news. I know that last year the NUJ raised an alarm over the continuous abduction of journalists. In fact, two comes to mind readily. I remember our colleague Abdul Ghaffar Alabilewe of the Nation's newspaper, and also Abdurrahim Abdul, who is also Blueprint newspaper, and so many others who either get arrested, intimidated, killed, and all this in the face of carrying out their jobs. How has it been trying to address some of these issues?
Well, the situation is critical everywhere in the country, whereby Nigerian journalists will be trained on the way the way they will protect themselves. And above all, I want to also make sure that the most important thing is for us to follow the code of ethics and the code of profession, whereby journalists will be doing his job without fear or favor, and nobody and nothing will happen to him as well.
All right, it's still Insights on Citizen 93.7 FM. I'm here in Abuja and we're discussing the role of journalism in Nigeria and the challenges of the Nigerian media. My guest is the president of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Al Hassan Yahaya. You can join the conversation. You can call us on 0903 2229797. You can also call us on 0818 2222205 or 0818-2222-206. You can also send us a message on any of the three numbers, and my guests will be here to respond to. You can also call us on WhatsApp, any of those numbers, and we will respond to you. Once again, my guest is the president of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Al Hassan Yahaya, in the studio. So let's move on to some of the core issues when it comes to journalism. First, I want us to sort out the issue of the journalist himself. You spoke about the condition of living and everything. Over the years, it's been a worrying and reoccurring development that condition of service for journalists, poor pay, sometimes they go months on end without salaries and everything. And every leadership of the NUJ has always said they are going to tackle this. How far has it been? How bad is the situation now?
Okay, we have two strategies. One of the strategy is for us, there was what we call weighing allowance that was implemented by the federal government some years back. And then when I was chairman of NUJ in my council, I was privileged to get access to the approval. And I took that approval to my governor in Gombe State at that particular time. And I was able to convince the governor, and the governor approved weighing allowance for journalists working under state media outlet. I brought this because it is very, very important. I did not stop there. I picked that approval and I brought it to the NEC. NEC ratified the approval and disseminate across the 36 plus FCT. As I'm talking to you, more than 28 states are benefiting from weighing allowance. Weighing allowance is mainly for federal journalists working under media apparel agencies. But at that particular time, I felt let's give it a trial. And we're able to achieve that. Today, more than 28 states are benefiting from an allowance. And at the same time, there is a new concept that is coming off in Adamawa State. For instance, a bill that is approved by the State House of Assembly. It has went all through. It has been passed by the House of Assembly. What remains for that bill is the assent of the governor. That bill, within the content of the bill, there is a clause whereby it talks about improving the welfare of journalists working in the state. And at the same time, within the bill, there is also a clause that talks about increasing the years of service for practicing journalists in the state. We felt if the governor of that state assent to that bill, we will brought that bill before the NEC. NEC will also ratify and distribute across the 36 states so that councils will also pursue from their own states for implementation. And above all, we want to see this time around will engage senior colleagues, stakeholders who are going to develop and review what we call media enhancement bill. The media enhancement bill, if you can recall, it was presented in the 7 or 8 assembly, if I can recall vividly. After Seko Reddy, the media enhancement bill was killed by that legislators. And this time around, we want to come up with a new strategy whereby we'll incorporate all media-related agencies, whereby we'll incorporate senior colleagues, whereby we'll incorporate sisters organization as well as civil society and NGOs that are working in line with our profession to give their input in that bill. And at the end of the day, by the time we presented, we have already identified 2 members of the House of Representatives and 1 from the Senate who are going to sponsor the bill. And I want to assure you that if that bill is really presented, we are hopeful that at the end of the day, the bill is going to be passed and the remuneration for journalists is going to be reviewed. And I want to assure you that at the end of the day, we'll have a cause to smile.
Okay, President, we have a caller here. Let's see. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, my brother. How are you?
I'm fine. Good morning. Who is?
Thank you very much for doing a wonderful job. And thank you very much for bringing the national president of the NUJ. My name is Moyo Olomu. Hello?
All right, please go ahead, Junior. God bless you for coming.
My name is Moyo Olomu, and I'm calling from Lugbe.
Okay, please go ahead.
So my question is this. Sir, what are you doing to ensure that you curb the menace of fake journalists? who are giving the profession a bad name. That is one. Two, sir, you will discover that the spokespersons of many MDAs are not trained journalists. And it is clear from their writings or reportage that they do not have the nuances or the basic education or knowledge of what journalism is all about. Is there anything you are doing about this? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you. So, President, it's like this scholar was reading my mind. I was about to ask that question. So let's start from there. The issue of quackery in journalism is becoming very, very embarrassing. Anybody can claim to be a journalist as long as you have their identity card and you work in a media house.
Yeah, actually, issues of quackery is something of worrisome and concern. And like I said earlier on, we are coming off with a national committee that is going to be inaugurated very soon. And that committee is going to be domesticated at all the state council with the sole aim of fighting quacks journalists. And I want to assure you, it is not only in journalism profession that we have quackery. We'll have quack doctors, we'll have quack lawyers, and so on. But this time around, we mean business, and we have already I don't want to talk more on the radio station, but I have a strategy. We have a strategy that we are going to implement towards at least reducing the quackery in Nigeria. It is something that is also doable. About the non-appointing as professional as spokesperson, yes, of course, we have discussed this in one of our NEC, I think about 6 years ago. It was a NEC resolutions that henceforth government agencies and government and governors should appoint reputable and renowned journalists as their spokesperson. And I want to assure you, this time around we mean business towards that. We are coming up with new strategy of restructuring our institute that we call IIJ. Is there here in Abuja, and that institute is going to be a platform for training and retraining of journalists, and that platform is going to be a training and retraining of spokesperson of media agencies in the country. And I want to assure you that we mean business in that. The agency is we are now about getting accreditation from the NBTE. Already the institute is an affiliate of University of Maiduguri, and we have graduates who are wonderfully doing well in various fields. And I want to assure you that NUJ mean business in that, and will do everything humanly possible to see that we have changed such narratives to a better one.
Okay, are we planning to have a national data bank of journalists?
We have what we call a compendium for journalists. From what we have, we know the number of journalists we have in Nigeria. Of course, some are dead, some are not even yet registered, but I want to use this opportunity as well. If you are a practicing journalist and not registered, quickly rush to your council. From the council will identify where you fit, they will send you to that chapel. You'll be registered from your chapel, and after paying a token of only 5,000 naira. It is one profession in Nigeria that up to now, the practicing fee is very, very small. Just 5,000 naira, I think, is something that every journalist can afford to pay as a practicing fee for practicing journalists in Nigeria for a whole year. And then subsequent year, you review the amount. I want to assure you that this time around, our doors are up, especially now that we have a lot of challenges of social media. Social media is a threat to.
Yeah, we are coming to that.
Yeah, it's a threat to our profession, but I believe we have something in the pipeline that is going to go a long way in changing such narratives to a better one.
Before we move on, Mr. President, why is it difficult for practitioners who pay for membership fees to get their national identity card on time? Sometimes it takes more than a year, 2 years, 3 years.
Yes, there is a reason for that. If, for instance, as a journalist, you paid your practicing fee in Akwa Ibom, and it is expected that the Akwa Ibom Council will compile all the lists as attached with their qualification, sent to the National Secretariat. National Secretariat will look at it and verify whether this person is qualified to be journalist or not. Because if you go through the constitution of the NUJ, there is what we have there clearly stated for who is a journalist and who is a journalist. You have to at least acquire such qualification for you to be accredited as a journalist. I want to assure you, this time around, I have come with a new strategy of after registration, we will send the guide, the ICT man to the council. Instead of you sending the data here, From there, he will do the screening there, and he will invite you physically, whereby he will capture you, because we have issues whereby there are names that I cannot even pronounce. There are names that you cannot pronounce. There are names that listeners cannot pronounce. But with you having physical interface with the ICT man, you will be able to spell your name correctly. And at the end of the day, won't have issues from the spelling errors and so on. So this time around, after councils were able to pay it and they are ready, they will let us know. Then we'll send the technical person to that council, whereby at the end of the day, within a day or two, members will be captured and your ID card will be presented there automatically. And I want to assure you, this is one of the new innovations we have brought to the system.
So is there a timeline for this?
It's already in place. We have already commenced implementing that. Any moment from now, ICT people will be moving around within the country, capturing, registering, and renewing members who are all members for their ID card, because we don't want to. We are almost in a first quarter of the year. At least people should have their ID card without delay.
All right, thank you so much for that. Well, it's still Insight on Citizen 93.7 FM here in Abuja, and we'll be discussing the challenges facing the Nigerian media. And my guest has been Alhassan Yahaya, National President, Nigerian Union of Journalists. We take a short break now, and when we return, we'll look at some other national issues before we round off the program. My name is Lawrence Moite. Please don't go away.
Reach out. Speak up. Speak out. You are the voice of a new generation. And this is your station. Talk Radio 93.7 Citizen FM.
Of our dream. Citizen FM, Citizen FM. Your problem is my problem and my joy is your joy. Citizen FM, Citizen FM. Make we join our hearts to build a nation of our dream. Citizen FM, Citizen FM. Yeah. Your problem is my problem and my joy is your joy. Citizen FM, Citizen FM. Shiki.
Thank you for staying tuned. It's still Insight on Citizen FM 93.7, and this is the second half of the show, and this is where we also take more calls. You can call us on 0903 2229797. You can also call us on 08 18222205 or 0818 2222206. And my guest is the president of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Alhassan Yahaya, and he's been bringing us to speed on the activities of his leadership in the last 3 months. Once again, thank you so much for coming on the show, Alhassan.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right, let's move on to some other critical issues. The Freedom of Information Act, for example. Number one, it's not a media law, as a lot of people think. It's an avenue for people to have access to information and everything. But over the years, there's been a lot of challenges associated with accessing this information. Either sometimes, although the law is specific on a lot of things, on what you can do if you are refused access and so many other things. But a lot of, I think, is it a problem of enlightenment or a problem of people knowing exactly what to do in the events that they cannot get information?
Yeah, I think two things are here. One is a problem of enlightenment. People need to be enlightened. I must commend the immediate former president of Nigeria, Goodluck Ibele Jonathan, for passing that law and assenting that law. And I believe he has done wonderfully well to Nigerians by giving them a law that will be used to hold government accountable. But people are still not aware of that law. And I know there are agencies that have done their best in trying to sensitize and educate people. But above all, I think it is very, very important for two government agencies, especially National Orientation Agency, as well as Ministry of Information, to come out and do the more sensitization. And above all, media agencies should also contribute in doing that. But the other part of the problem is the government at the subnational level, especially the governors at the state level. You know, the issue is this is a law from the national, from the federal government, but most of the time, if people were trying to use that law in some of the state will come out and say categorically that they did not adapt that law in their own state. So I think it is high time for us to look at the way of at least resolving this crisis, whereby if I need an information, for instance, in my own state, Gombe State, whether the government have domesticated the law or they do not, I will be able to access that information without delay. And I think this is one major thing that we need to find a way of resolving these issues. Then I believe that will go a long way in changing the situation in the country.
All right, let's move on to another critical responsibility of the Nigerian media, and that's holding government to account. And this became worrisome, especially build up to the 2023 general elections, when virtually everything was on air, and every other thing was discussed except issues. And as media men, how do we shape that agenda? How do we ensure that issues are always on the front burner? Issues of accountability, issues of reporting what you've done to your constituents, issues of obeying internal regulations of your political parties, and so many other things like this.
Yeah, that is why this year we are prioritizing ways of making sure that we reward best investigative journalists, and with the sole aim of at least making sure that that will serve as a process for other people to emulate. And I want to believe that at the end of the day, it will change the way we operate. But above all, I think it is very, very paramount and important for all of us as journalists in Nigeria, either private, government, as well as those that are online, to make sure that we come up with new strategy that is going to be used towards making sure that we hold government accountable and we set agenda for the government. And by setting agenda to the government, that will also, is just like holding government accountable. For instance, if this time around we all agree that we want to prioritize issues of health in this country, let's all of us be talking about health. And I want to believe that we are setting agenda to the government, and government has no option than to invest and release funds towards improving health sector in Nigeria. But this time around, you see someone talking on other issues, somebody is talking on the other issues, someone talking on the other issues. I think it's high time for all of us as journalists, media organizations, as well as media outlets to come up with one voice on agenda setting. This is very, very, very important, and I believe government must listen to us while we are doing our job. And I want to assure you that Nigerians will have a cause to smile at the end of the day. Nigerians will appreciate the kind of role journalists are playing in Nigeria, or they are playing towards changing the way Nigeria should be in future.
All right, I'm sure I'm happy you brought that in, but let's be frank here and look at this dispassionately.
Yeah.
While the Constitution on one hand empowers the media to hold government accountable, the media is a business. It's supposed to be a social service. Absolutely. But in Nigeria, it's, especially the private sector, is run like a business. Now, how do you balance the act of a media house staying afloat, making money, getting advertisement, and also on one hand, holding government to account, sometimes exposing rot in government, which can also incur the wrath of advertisers? You know what I'm talking about. How this is a challenge that the Nigerian media needs to overcome. How do you think this?
There are ways of doing that. There are so many ways of doing. There are theories one media organization should come up with to implement. Every media organization should own or have its own theory. And I know if my theory is to set agenda for government, there are ways I should do it. And at the end of the day, I will be making resources for my off-keep. I will be also achieving my objectives at the end of the day. I want to believe that with the strategic implementation of a theory, one will be able to achieve that. And at the same time, globally, there is no country that media is not setting agenda to the government. And above all, and globally, if you look at it, government used to give a bailout to media industries. But in Nigeria, this is a key issue. But this time around, I told you that there are certain issues that I don't want to say it on the air, but I believe NUJ is doing a lot in changing the way Nigerian media outlets should operate and the way Nigerian media outlets should also engage to citizens and the way Nigerian media outlets should also relate with their subjects as well as their staffs. I want to assure you that very, very soon something is coming off and it is for better for all of us, and I believe that Nigerian journalists or Nigerian media organization will have a cause to smile. But first of all, I have talked about theory. It's left for us as either proprietors or as journalists to come up with a strategic theory that we'll use in our media organizations towards making sure that we sustain ourselves and we sustain the station and we sustain the system, and also we have touched life of Nigerians in a positive way.
All right, I'm happy you brought in that again, the proprietors and the professional. In the media industry, there's always this balance between the proprietors, the promoters of the business, and the core professionals. You are a journalist, a professional. How do you as a journalist and a professional balance the act of doing what is in the best interest for the society and also trying to keep your medium afloat in terms of survival?
Well, I think this is a good question. As a journalist, like I said, every media organization globally has a mission, has a vision, but we should have it at the back of our mind, especially in Nigeria. National security should be of concern to all of us. Whatever we are doing, we should have interest in one Nigeria. Once we have that at the back of our mind, whoever the proprietor is, definitely that should be his focus as well. As a journalist, if I'm focusing towards that, the proprietor should also focus towards that. And at the same time, as a journalist, there are ways we use or words we use or strategy we use to change the way the proprietors operate. And I will give you an example. In one of the radio stations, I was a consultant there. Then that radio station happens to be the radio station with the highest listeners in that state. But unfortunately, when it comes to revenue, it's not the highest. The strategy I implemented at that particular time is not for the revenue purposes. It's for me to catch the audience first. I have done that, but at the end of the day,
I'm sure it was a government station.
I'm coming. I'm sure I have done that, but at the end of the day, when it comes to revenue, it's not the same thing. I moved to another station. In that station, my strategy, I don't need a large crowd. I need people that will bring resources to the station. And I am able to achieve that with a very minimal or small number of listeners. But I am having a very good content that members love, members prove to the station and pay for them to be participating in that program. So I think it's strategy. Everyone has his own strategy, and as I'm talking to, is the same issue is going in that state. The other station has the highest listeners, but the other station has the highest revenue at the end of the month. So it's left for us as journalists to work closely. But the era of saying that, in fact, I think this time around it's important for me to come out and say it clearly. Equity, that is what we call, is a global trend. Equity. If I'm working in a radio or television station or anywhere, I should have a say in that place, and I should feel like I'm the owner my kind of contribution as if I'm the owner. Equity is very, very important. That will sustain staffs to remain where they are. That will sustain staff to give their maximum contributions towards progress and development of any media outlet in that country or in that state or in that local government.
Okay, there are professions that when the practitioners step out of line, the profession will wield the big stick and sanction such a person. For example, in the law profession,
yes,
there are certain things you do and they say no, it's a reproach to the law society. This matter came up a few years, or no, maybe during just the build-up to the 2023 elections.
Yeah.
And we saw practitioners, people who have spent years in the industry, maybe because they were not at that time practicing core journalism, and they decided to do things that negate everything that journalism stands for. Will there ever come a time where the Nigerian Union of Journalists or any regulatory body in the media space can sanction professionals for misdeed?
Of course, even in NUJ level, we used to sanction members. There are members that were sanctioned by NUJ. There are members that were warned by NUJ. There are members, or there are radio stations, television stations that were sanctioned or warned by the regulatory agencies in Nigeria. But at the same time, we don't want government to gag the media organizations. That does not mean that if you have, in fact, self-censorship is key. Whatever you are doing, have a self-censorship at the back of your mind. At the end of the day, you'll be able to achieve your objectives, and you'll be able to change the narratives, and you'll be able to do what you want to do without any fear or any sanctions or any attack or any problem from anybody, whether from the professional body or from the regulatory body.
All right, we are gradually rounding off. It's still Insight on Citizen FM 93.7, and my guest is the president of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, and we've been looking at a lot of issues relating to the Nigerian media space. You can still call us. You can take one or two calls, 0903 2229 797. You can call us on 0818 2222 205 or 0818 2222 206. Let's look at the social media. This is a phenomenon that has taken the world by storm. There's virtually no aspect of human endeavors that has not been affected by the social media. In terms of the legacy media, the way it was practiced before the intervention, how has the effect been for the Nigerian journalists, for the Nigerian media?
Well, this is a global issue. The way and manner the social media is moving, definitely, whether we like it or not, we have to accept part of it. That is why a year and a half ago, NUJ was able to review its constitution in Kano State, and we were able to incorporate reputable online media organizations.
How do you monitor them? How do you regulate them?
They're fine. We within the constitution, we says reputable organizations that we believe knows what they are doing can form a chapel. They will come in a group, 12 of them or 15 of them or 20 of them. We will scrutinize. They must have a valid registration with CSC, Corporate Affairs Commission, and they should also have a valid registration with the union. And at the end of the day, we'll look at their content, and if we believe that that content is in line with the code of ethics, then we accept them as our members. And we have those in our list, and they are doing wonderfully well. Reason is for us to set agenda. And the essence is for us to allow people to have access to reputable media organizations that are operating online. Unlike others that will just be there for them to make money and destroy the system. And we are not advising people to be listening or to be watching or to be reading such kind of content from those guys. Unfortunately, if you go to United States of America today, the current president of the country is recognizing bloggers, is recognizing, in fact, recently, the spokesperson of the White House come out to tell the whole world that it is now open for bloggers online journalists to come be accredited in the White House. So this is to tell you we have a serious issues at stake, and it's left for us as journalists to improve our equipment, improve our standard. If, for instance, I am happy that this radio station is on YouTube, this radio station is on Facebook, likely this radio station is on Twitter and the rest. And I believe people will be following the radio stations through such platform. Not necessarily you must hold a radio handset for you to listen to what is happening there. So this is what we call the new globalization. And at the end of the day, if all our media outlets are online and offline, for instance, that will go a long way in changing the narratives.
Okay. The cost of running a print outfit is getting more and more, and meanwhile the print out and so many other things are so expensive. I know that at the level of the NUJ leadership, some of these concerns may have been brought to your attention, especially from your colleagues in those who run the newspaper, proprietors and even editors and so many other things. Are there any plans to see this? Anything can be done?
Well, first, the plan we have at the NUJ is bail out, and bail out. And I believe globally, government used to give bail out. And I see no reason why Nigerian...
Are there current discussions on that?
Yes, Nigerian media outlets should be considered and be given such opportunity to benefit from the bailout. Thank God, in one way or the other, the current President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he has a link with a media institution, and I believe he will listen to us, and at the end of the day, we'll have a cause to smile.
Okay. All right. Still talking about the fallout of the social media and the involvement of the Nigerian media. We now have what we call citizen journalism, and this is where anybody who is somebody with access to technology can report events, can call questions, can make observations, and so many other things. But are we really using the citizen journalism right?
Well, I don't want to talk about that, but I want to promote citizen journalism within our conventional media organization. Before now, 20 years ago, it's a one-way traffic. For you to get a feedback, you remember when we write letters to BBC,
the editors.
Letters to the editors. Before that letter will publish, it will take 6 months, 7 months. But now, as we are discussing, you and I, we have a callers that are calling. If you go through the social media, you see feedback. This is citizen journalism through a reputable media organizations. I don't want to promote citizen journalism through those people that has no what we call prerequisite to be journalists in Nigeria. But I believe people should not listen to them. People should move the traffic from those people to reputable media outlets across the country.
What do the Nigerian professionals expect from the leadership of the Nigerian Union of Journalists? 2025 short term, in the next 2 years, in medium term, and even at the long term?
First of all, we want to see how we'll be able to touch life of journalists by coming up with new scheme that we call insurance scheme for practicing journalists. I most appreciate former President Olusegun Obasanjo for introducing NHIA or NHIA system in Nigeria. This is an insurance for health that go a long way in touching life of women, children, and vulnerable group. But this time around, for us as journalists, it is key and important for all of us to see how we'll be able to come off with a new insurance scheme for practicing journalists of a premium not more than 15,000 naira. A journalist will be able to assess quality healthcare from primary healthcare to secondary healthcare up to the tertiary healthcare in a year with that 15,000 naira. That is doable. And I believe
is that visible?
very visible.
15,000 naira?
15, yes, of course. We are already in discussion with the what we call PFMA, the responsible organization assigned by the whether state health insurance agencies or the National Health Insurance Agency to register people. So I think this time around NUJ is already in discussions with them, whereby members will pay that token, and at the end of the day they will assess quality healthcare services with 3 key objectives. 1, to reduce maternal mortality. 2, to increase what we call universal health coverage. And the third one is for us to see how people will be able to access a very good qualitative healthcare from primary healthcare to tertiary healthcare without problems.
All right, finally, President, what will you say in the last 3 months has been the single most important challenge of the Nigerian journalists?
Well, one of the challenge I see is honestly issues around remuneration for Nigerian journalists. Journalism profession is the least paid profession in Nigeria, and I want to use this opportunity to appeal to government as well as entrepreneurs as well as proprietors to touch life of journalists by increasing our remuneration.
All right, thank you so much, Al-Hassan Yahaya, President, Nigerian Union of Journalists, for your intervention so far on Inside. It's been a privilege to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Oh, well, that's our package on the show today. My guest has been the President of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Al-Hassan Yahaya, and spent about 50 minutes, giving us some of his insights, so to speak, into the media and Nigerian media. I'm sure, Mr. President, when next we call on you, you would oblige us with your presence.
God willing, I'll be available.
All right, so that's our package on Insight today. Join us again tomorrow morning for another edition. My name is Lawrence Almighty. Enjoy the rest of your day.